Warning! Courage is contagious. Side effects of listening may include a sudden surge of motivation, bigger goals, bolder decisions, and an overwhelming desire to bust through your comfort zone. Welcome to Comfort to Courage, the podcast where brave conversations inspire fearless growth. And now, the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Comfort to Courage, where people choose courage over comfort because courage is contagious. I'm Jen Josie, the bestower of badassery, and every week I bring you real stories from people whose bold decisions changed the course of their lives. If you've been waiting for a sign to take that first step, consider this it. On today's episode, our guest, Larry Roberts, is sharing the moment he chose courage over comfort and the story of what it took to seek help and what it cost him to get there. But before we begin, here's today's Badassery Bestowment, a little badass gift to you. Today's bestowment is about building a courage habit. People think courage is something you're born with, like some magical personality trait. Well, it's not. Courage is built the same way you build muscle, one rep at a time. Maybe you've heard that little voice in your head whisper, "You're not ready." I know I have. The truth is, you're never going to wake up one morning overflowing with confidence and suddenly feel fearless. Courage grows one small choice at a time. The best part is you don't need some giant life-changing leap to become more courageous. Small intentional actions practiced consistently will strengthen your courage muscle until doing hard things simply becomes part of who you are. Here are 5 simple courage reps you can start practicing this week. Number 1, say the honest thing. The next time someone asks you how you're doing, skip the automatic "I'm good." We all know "I'm good" can cover everything from "I just got promoted" to "I'm one inconvenience away from crying in the Target parking lot." Practicing honesty when the stakes are low makes it much easier when the stakes are high. Number 2, ask the question. If you're wondering it, somebody else probably is too. The smartest people in the room aren't the ones who pretend to know everything. They're the ones who aren't afraid to ask. Curiosity isn't weakness, it's courage. Number 3, make the phone call. Let's be honest, texts let you edit them 17 times before hitting send. But whether you're following up with a client, checking in on a friend, or having that difficult conversation, a 2-minute phone call builds confidence in a way text never will. Number 4, be willing to be bad at something. Take the class, sing that karaoke song, pitch the idea, try the new hobby. Every expert was once a beginner. They just kept showing up. Growth begins the moment you're willing to be one too. And number 5, say no without the guilt. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That text pops up, and before your brain has the chance to object, your fingers are already typing, "Sure." Stop volunteering your future time before checking in with your present self. Healthy boundaries are one of the bravest gifts you can give yourself. So, my fearless followers, here's the badass bottom line. You don't build courage by waiting for the perfect moment to arrive. You build it one small choice at a time. Every uncomfortable conversation, every honest answer, every bold question, every healthy boundary is another step away from comfort and closer to the life you really want. And that's today's badassery bestowment.
Now it's time to dig a little deeper. Every guest on this show has one thing in common. They chose courage over comfort. Here's someone who dared to step outside of their comfort zone and discovered what was possible on the other side.
Today's guest is Larry Roberts, founder of Red Hat Media, and I have to be honest, this one is personal for me. I met Larry very early on in my podcast journey, and he has been one of my podcast idols ever since. He is the very first guest on the rebrand of the show, and I could not be more honored to have someone I have looked up to for so long, someone I genuinely call a celebrity in this space, kicking off Comfort to Courage with me. Larry has built an incredible platform through Red Hat Media and has amassed a loyal following as at the Larry Roberts across all social media, while also being remarkably candid about the harder parts of his story. He is currently in recovery after a destructive battle with alcoholism, and instead of hiding that chapter, he has chosen to be open about it. Here's what makes Larry uniquely worth listening to. He's living proof that courage isn't a single leap. It's a decision you keep making. His story is about the courage it took to seek help and what's possible on the other side of sober living. It's my absolute pleasure to have him on the show. So welcome, Larry Roberts.
Hey, thanks for having me. It is an honor to be here as well. So the feeling is very, very mutual. Super stoked to be here.
I cannot believe I'm having a conversation with Larry Roberts. So let's dive in here. I want to start with Red Hat Media. What is it? Why did you start it? Who do you work with? Tell us everything.
Yeah, it actually started back in, I believe it was 2020. I was at a conference with a mutual friend, actually. Actually, it was a Podfest conference, and it was at the Amalie Arena in Florida there. And I had worn that particular talk that I was giving. I'd worn a Supreme hat, which, if you're not familiar with the lifestyle brand Supreme, everything they do is red and it just says Supreme real big on whatever the item happens to be. So I gave my talk, and Alex Sanfilippo, who is a good friend of mine and a mutual friend of yours as well, uh, got me right after I came off stage. He goes, "Hey, bro, great talk, blah, blah, blah." He goes, "But why are you wearing that Supreme hat?" And I go, "Man, I'm just trying to be cool. I'm an older cat. I'm trying to relate to everybody. Back then I still dyed my beard, the whole 9 yards." And he goes, "Well, that's great now, but are they paying you to wear it on stage?" And that was a life-changing question right there. Because of course they weren't paying me. I'm a middle-aged white dude. They probably pay me not to wear their stuff, in all honesty. So I went home and I kept ruminating over what Alex had said. And I thought, okay, that makes sense. But he had also told me that although you shouldn't be wearing the Supreme hat, I love the red. He said, because, I'm a big guy. At the time, I was probably about 250. Now I'm about 228. Very happy to report that. But I'm also very tall. And he said that red hat on your head, it's like a beacon where you just stand out in a crowd. And so, with that advice and that question that he asked, I ditched the Supreme hat, which now actually sits in a shadow box. And I picked up a flat billed red hat, just like the one I'm wearing, only red. Gave it a little kick to the right, about 7, 8 degrees, and the red hat guy was born. And it wasn't really that moment that I was born as the red hat guy and was starting Red Hat Media. It was about a few months later when I was at another conference called Bitcoin Miami, which is a massive Bitcoin conference. And I was there creating content, doing interviews, that sort of thing. And several people over those 3 days came up to me and said, are you the podcast guy? And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, how'd you know?" And they go, "Man, it's the red hat. We knew the red hat was you." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So I'd already had my business, right? But it wasn't called Red Hat Media. It was a very dumb name. So I went back to the house after that conference. We changed the name of the company. And that's when actually the Red Hat guy was born. And, Red Hat Media was founded initially as a podcast production company. I was helping people launch their podcast and conceptualize their podcast. And we had actually started pretty small. But today we do quite a bit more than that. We're also a podcast production house still. We help people, but we typically help brands at this stage of the game. So while I'm more than happy to work with individuals, my real target audience are brands. And we launch branded podcasts to get their company, their business, their product, their service, whatever it is, more attention and in the end, more customers and clients. But over the years, we've expanded a bit. That silly red hat that I wore, it somehow made me a branding expert. So I wrote a book called Under the Red Hat, and I talked all about how your brand is really you. It's this hat that I was wearing. It was just an identifier, but everything under that is actually your brand, and I go into depth in that in the book. Um, but over the course of the years, AI hit the scene. And I was just lucky enough to be one of the first guys to talk on a large stage, which again was at the PodFest big conference of the year in January. ChatGPT dropped in November of 23, and PodFest is always in January. So I took the big stage there at PodFest and I introduced all the content creators to AI and how it can help streamline their podcast production. And it was a big hit, and it positioned me as an AI guy as well. So that's what we do today. We do podcast conception, launch, production, branding as well, and then also AI solutions for content creators. And although I can't really let the cat out the bag just yet, we're working on something really, really big right now that is going to revolutionize the AI and podcast / content creation space. So, pretty excited about that. My hope is to launch it in January. I'm working with another mutual friend, most likely. I'm not going to drop his name here because I don't know if he's ready for it to be out there just yet. But our goal is to drop it in January at Podfest. So
Wonderful. Well, I have a quick question about the red hat. Have you ever had any pushback because there is a other red hat that is very well known, and I feel like it would just kind of upset half of your audience. So, do you have any issues with that?
I haven't seen anywhere remotely close to half, but I have lost clients because of the red hat. They refuse to work with me. I'm not kidding. It's just a plain, it's literally just like this. There's no words, there's nothing. It's just a red hat. Um, I have lost clients for that, and then I've had some that came real close to not working with me. But once I sent them to my website and they saw the red hat story, they were like, "Okay, as long as and I don't ever mix business and politics, so that's definitely there's no political agenda behind the red hat whatsoever. It just happened to be the color I wore that day, and it just happened to be the color that Supreme uses in all of their branding. So that's it. It's literally just to stand out in what we like to refer to as a very crowded market space.
So it's very important when people are determining their brand to really think forward because of situations that may come. And you never know what's going to happen out there. So and there's like Red Hat. I guess it's just called Red Hat, which is there's offices here in Raleigh. There's other
Yep.
companies and things like so. Anyway,
Yeah, but
you
their red hat's a little bit different. And
okay.
if you really want to get into the minutia, it was so cool because I did a talk for Red Hat, and it's IBM / Linux. And I wore my red hat, and they wore their red hat, but they use a fedora. So there's no conflict in they're two totally different hats. And I mean, obviously, two totally different industries, and I'm nowhere big enough for them to give any care whatsoever to me wearing another red hat and calling my company Red Hat Media. So that was just it was really very meta, as they like to call it, for the red hat to be speaking at Red Hat.
I totally forgot it was a fedora. You are so correct. So
Yeah.
you are currently wearing a black hat, and we are going to get into, hopefully, you'll share with us where your red hat is currently. But
Yeah.
let's go back to that specific moment. You are currently in rehab and dealing with alcoholism, and
Yep.
have really, you are putting this out on social media and just sharing your story, and it's making such a huge difference to so many of your followers. But take us back to that specific moment where it was just rock bottom, and what did that look like, and what pushed you to actually go and seek help?
Yeah. And I don't want to bore everybody with a war story of going through all the process, but actually, I went into rehab for the first time in 2012, long before we knew each other. And I went in and I did 7 weeks and came out and was sober for 12 years. So I didn't do any follow up. I didn't go to meetings. I didn't have a sponsor. I didn't do any of the typical things that you hear of folks having to do to gain their sobriety. And I've caused some controversy around here this time because I say that I regret that 12 years of sobriety because it made me very, very cocky and very, very arrogant. Um, I do a lot of work. I do a lot of networking. Well, I was doing a lot of networking, and I was really out there. I was a regular on ABC. I was speaking all over the country. I still had my podcast. I had two businesses at the time, Red Hat Media and another company called Branded. It was just, there was a lot going on. And it was really starting to weigh on me about 2.5 years ago or so. And I was going to actually deliver a talk to a group of business brokers. So these very, very successful, very, very rich individuals that buy and sell large businesses. And I was teaching them about I was supposed to be teaching them how to talk about how to use AI. And man, it just hit me hard that day for whatever reason. I mean, I've been in front of audiences just like this and actually much bigger than this. So I shouldn't have been nervous, but the anxiety just hit me like a ton of bricks that morning. And as I was headed to give that talk at lunch, I thought, you know what, man, just a couple shots would be great. Just do a couple shots. You can do it. Not a big deal. Calm your nerves. Go do your talk, and everything will be everything. And well, that just wasn't the case because a couple of shots, actually, I bought four of those like little airline shooters that day, and it just exploded from there. And I managed to maintain a functioning alcoholic state for about a year and a half, maybe. But things really just bottomed out around September of last year. They really started bottoming out because my business partner on the branded side and I went to Portland, Oregon to a creator conference. Actually, FinCon is the name of the conference. You've probably heard of it. And we had a booth there. We were actually sponsors, and we got invited to a sponsor happy hour type scenario. And my business partner, she said, "Dude, please don't drink. Don't get stupid," because she knew I was having issues, right? And I said, it's fine. I'm just going to do a couple just to be social. Well, apparently I got a little overly social. And some of the old school comedy Larry came out. And comedy Larry is, from the 80s. So Larry comedy is less than clean. And they did not have an appreciation for Larry's level of comedy in Portland, Oregon. So what ended up happening is I embarrassed the heck out of my business partner. And I actually got banned from that conference. They didn't kick us out that night, but about a week after getting home from that conference, I got a nice little email that said, "Yeah, please don't. Yeah, you're not welcome. Don't come back." So that was really like, hey, the stuff's hitting the fan this time, but it wasn't enough really to clean me up. My business partner and I, we had made an agreement and actually drew up a legal contract that said I had to stay sober. I had to do a variety of different things in order for us to stay business partners. And it wasn't long before I called her up and she's like, "You're drunk, aren't you?" I went, "Yep." And she went, "Click." And the very next day, there was a dissolution contract in my inbox. And so I lost that, my half of that business. And that was kind of an eye opener, but not enough. Actually, it just made me a little worse. And so I started pounding them back more and more and more. And finally, things hit ahead Christmas Eve of last year. And I had reached out to some friends because I had probably been in my apartment for about 2 weeks with no connection to, I isolated, which is really a big no no in the sobriety arena. But I had isolated for several weeks and I reached out to some friends, and then I guess I passed out because I reached out to them while I was very, very intoxicated. And next thing I know, they're at my apartment. They'd never been there before, but they found my apartment, got into my apartment, got me awake, threw some clothes on me. They'd already talked to my wife, and they'd already arranged for me to go to a facility back in Dallas. And I went to that facility, and I stayed for 30 days because I felt that was going to be plenty. I had 12 years of sobriety and I could do this again. It's not going to be a big deal. So I did my 30 and was sober for about 2 weeks before I had a relapse after that 30 days. And then that one was even worse. I was to the point where I honestly thought I was going to die. I was standing over the sink, getting sick every 15 to 20 minutes. I had eaten over the course of 7 weeks. I had eaten 5 cups of noodles. That's it over the course of 7 weeks. It was really a nasty situation, and Ironically, I was too embarrassed to reach back out to those same friends or really any of my friends because I put myself right back in this position, only worse. And I was just laying there reconciling myself to the fact that, yeah, this is it. I'm done. But the phone rang, and it was we call it a Godsmack moment, where God just intervenes and is taking care of you, because the facility I went to for that 30 days, they just happened to call to check on me. And because it'd probably been 6 8 weeks, something like that, since I had gotten out. And I was laying there and I looked at the phone because I wasn't even answering the phone, but then I saw it was their main number. And I thought, well, I'll see what they have to say. And they're like, do you need help? I'm like, yeah, I need help. I think I'm actually dying here. And they said, well, let me see what I can do. So they called me back about 30 minutes later, and they said, we can take you, but it's going to be 2 to 3 days before we have a bed for you. And I said, well, then don't worry about it, because I'm not going to be here in 2 to 3 days.
Wow.
And we hung up again, and they called me back about 20 minutes later, said, okay, we made arrangements. We got a bed for you. Come on in. So at that point, I did call those same friends and said, would you please take me back over to this facility? And they did. And I spent 57 days the second time, completed treatment, quote unquote, my little air quotes there, and went on about my business. I stayed sober about 3 days after that,
Mm.
completing treatment and everything, and went off the deep end again. And this time, I didn't want to go back to my apartment after I'd gotten out of there, so I got an Airbnb. And this little old lady, she's amazing, and she's still super uplifting, super supportive, but she does not want me at her house, which I can appreciate. But while at that Airbnb, I started drinking again, like I had said, and actually ended up getting a DUI. And I wasn't even driving because this lady, she didn't want the alcohol in her house. So I thought I'd be slick, and I went out to the car and drank. Well, apparently my intention was to just get a little buzz and go back in. Well, it went beyond a buzz, and one of the neighbors had called the police because they wanted to do a welfare check because I'd been in the car for so long. And they took me in for a DUI because all these little shooters were over in the passenger seat. And it was pretty obvious that I was drunk, since I don't even remember being arrested. I woke up in jail, and I'm like, where am I? Why am I here? And yeah, it was nuts. So I got out of jail. And by this time, too, my wife had kicked me out of the house. So we're still married, but we're not together. She actually kicked me out before I went into rehab the first time. But I called her. I said, would you please come get me? I'm right down the street here at this particular jail, and I got no car. I didn't even have shoes. So I wasn't even, because my intent wasn't to stay in the car. I just walked out there barefoot to drink a little bit. So here I am at this jail, no car. My phone's dead. I can't use my cell phone. The battery's dead as can be. So I can't even call an Uber. I was out. I was out of resources. But the police department let me call her, and she didn't answer the first couple of times. And they're like, you want to try one more time? I'm like, yes, please. And then finally she answered. And like I said, she was less than cheerful in her responses, but she was kind enough to come and get me and take me back to the Airbnb. And being the silver tongued podcaster that I am, I managed to talk the old lady, the old lady, that was very rude. The little old lady is what I meant to say, into letting me stay. And she's like, okay, but we can't have this again. This is nonsense. You got to change your life. You got to follow God, and you have to do all, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I'll do all that. No. So it was a couple of days later. She must have heard a thump. I'm assuming I was drinking and I passed out and hit the floor. And she came into the room to check on me, and there I am, unconscious in the floor. She called the ambulance, and they took me off to the hospital. And I got out of the hospital in about 24 hours, went back, and she was less than cordial this time. And she was like, get your stuff and get the F out of my house, is basically what her response was. And I did. So I went and stayed at a hotel for 10 days. And then, man, I'm like, all I did was sit there and order alcohol with DoorDash. DoorDash is evil, by the way, for
Oh,
for delivering alcohol. I'll tell you, they're not evil by any stretch. It's my responsibility. But that's all I did. I sat in a hotel for 10 days and ordered alcohol from DoorDash. And it's kind of fun to see who your delivery driver is going to be, because I had the same delivery driver multiple times over the course of those 10 days bringing me booze. But I was talking to my wife on the phone. She's like, bro, you got to do something, because you're going to check out in that hotel room. And I'm Like, yeah, I probably am. So needed to do something extreme and ended up making a couple phone calls, jumped on a plane, came out to San Diego. I did 30 days in a detox facility here called San Diego Detox. And now I'm in what they call it's post detox treatment. It's called PHP, or partial hospitalization program. I'm going to do this for about 45 days. Then I drop down to a lower care, then drop down one more, and then we're in sober living. So I'm going to be out here in San Diego for the next probably 3 to 4 months. But I'll be going back to Dallas sometime the end of the year. So there's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, I have a big question. Where is that red hat in all of this?
Yeah, I kind of gave up on the red hat because I had done so much brand damage with my drinking and no showing. And, I'm sure you probably recall, I was the editor in chief of the Podfest Messenger, the newsletter for Podfest.
Yes.
And twice I did not write the weekly issue of the newsletter because I was drunk. So I was persona non grata with Podfest for a while. But the founder and I were still good friends. I still got a couple of phone calls I need to make to talk to some other folks that are over there at Podfest as well. But yeah, just in that by itself, I had done a ton of brand damage. But I also had some other commercial contracts that I just let slide. So I did a lot of damage. Let me just continue saying that and put it that way. And I really felt that the red hat was dead in the water. And I'm still not 100% convinced that it's not. But I've heard from several people that go, dude, people mess up, they make mistakes, and there. When it comes to alcoholism, I think everybody, at least in our country, is touched by it in some way. You know, somebody that has an issue, a family member may have an issue, you yourself may have an issue. So people understand that alcohol takes hold of us and causes us to do a lot of things that we wouldn't do as our sober selves. So we're slowly, resurfacing. You've seen my daily videos that I'm doing now in the sobriety space. But I was gone from social media. I was gone from networking for a solid 9, 10 months.
Yes.
I didn't show up anywhere. So we're slowly working our way back, but I've got a lot of work to do on my sobriety before I can really focus on the next stage. But the goal is, like I said, I already told you, we're working on a project right now, myself and another gentleman that we hope to unveil at Podfest in January. So that's my end goal, at least for now. That's my long term goal. It's not very long term, but since I'm sitting here in a in a sober living facility, that seems a pretty far that seems pretty far off as it is right now. So
Well, Larry, I remember you disappearing from social media for a while, and I messaged you. I'm like, I just hope everything's okay. I'm just sending you love. I don't know what's going on. And
yeah.
then I watched your announcement. I was actually, thanks to menopause, I'm up at all hours of the night, and it was very late, like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I ended up watching your entire video,
Mm.
and you were wearing your black hat, and I I messaged you. I don't know if you remember it. I'm like, once you go black.
Yeah, I remember. And I
So
laughed.
I think it's a great transition, rising from the phoenix rising or whatever. But
Right.
you are just so very loved in this industry, and you have so many people supporting you. I know you've burned some bridges, but there is just a whole bunch of us, and you don't know me from Adam. I've just been a follower of yours and just a huge fan, and you've been such an inspiration to me. And I too have a family member who suffers from, do I say suffers from alcoholism, who is
I would
alcoholic.
say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she's now on the other side and being a mentor towards people. So I have watched her journey as well. And I'm curious though, why is this one going to stick where you are right now?
Yeah.
What's stopping you from going back to those airplane bottles?
Yeah, it's interesting that you asked that because I'm sitting here on day 51 of this recovery journey. And I came out to San Diego, one, to get away from my norm, get away from just the same grind and give me a different perspective on things. I have realized that the recovery journey is very similar regardless of where you're at, being that this is my third time since Christmas Eve, as I had mentioned. But at the same time, those first two times that I went, Again, 30 days, lots of arrogance, very cocky, knew I had this in the bag. I just needed to break the cycle and I'd be fine. The attitude just wasn't there for that 30 days. And honestly, I wasn't a very nice person, especially to staff at that facility, because I was just cocky as can be. I was like, I'm going to do my time and I'll be good to go and nobody will ever know. That was wrong. So when I went back the second time, I had a totally different attitude. I went to the same facility, and I apologized to everybody on staff. I said I was not a very good person, and that's not really me. I wasn't in the right headspace, and really committed myself to doing that program. And as I said, I quote unquote completed treatment. And I completed it 3 days early. It typically takes 60 days to complete the program. I did it in 57. I'm the cat daddy again, and I was the top tier of all the patients. They had 3 tiers, and that third tier, you get all the privileges and all the freedom and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, I was in it to win it, but I didn't do anything after the fact. The care that I just mentioned, the PHP and the IOP and that sort of thing, absolutely critical to your long-term sobriety. And I'm going to be out here for all of that, and that to me is I'm doing everything. I am committed to this 100%. I want my sobriety. I want to make amends. I want to reestablish any bridges that I have burnt, if possible. I understand some of them are irreparable, but I'm still going to try and at least apologize and, as they say in AA, make amends. Um, but I think that's going to be the difference. Is I'm out here, and I mean, to be honest with you, I'm applying for freaking food stamps today, and I never thought I would ever say that in my entire life. But that's the point of where I'm at in my life. I haven't had any income in probably 10 months, maybe 11. It's been a long time since I made even a dime. So my savings, it's not very pretty right now. I had over 800 plus credit rating when all this shit started. Now, I'm not even going to tell you what my credit is, but it's not 800 anymore. I'll tell you that. So, I mean, I've lost my wife. I've lost my dogs. I lost my house. I luckily my car was paid for. So I have a nice car that we paid off. I'm damn near bankrupt. I'm probably going to file bankruptcy when I get back, unless I'm able to land something, some clients or something while I'm out here and start making money, from an online perspective. I don't want to file bankruptcy. I'm 54 years old at the end of this month, and recovering from bankruptcy at 54 years old is the light's not very bright at the end of that tunnel. So that's going to be a last resort. But at this stage, I really don't know what else to do. All of my belongings are sitting in a storage facility back in Dallas. One of my best friends has my car. He's taking care of that for me while I'm gone, which he appreciates because it was a lot nicer than his car. So he's like, "This thing's awesome." I'm like, "Well, drive it till the wheels fall off, brother. Enjoy it. I appreciate you keeping it for me." So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, and I keep that as my focal point, and I keep that as my motivation, and keep that as my drive to stay here. I'm sitting in this apartment, this sober living apartment. It doesn't have air conditioning. I'm like, what? When I got here, I just assumed air conditioning was a given, but in San Diego, no air conditioning is a thing. I mean, all the AA meetings we go to every night, most of those don't have AC either. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh my God, I'm dying. So I've got 2 fans. I got a ceiling fan. I got a window fan. I got all these. I'm trying to survive here, and it's really shown a light on where I'm really at in life and all of the work that I have to do to come back. Do I believe I can come back? Yeah, I believe I can come back 100%. Am I confident that I'm going to put forth the work to do it? 100%. I'm not comfortable. I'll tell you that, but I'm going to make that transition back, and it's a very steep uphill climb, but we're going to climb it. So that's why I feel it's different this time. I'm out here in a strange place by myself with a bunch of strange people that I've never known in my life that come in and out. And it's just giving me that opportunity to focus on me. And I think if you're able to be selfish at any time in life, it's when you're trying to overcome something like this. So
Absolutely. Well, in your steep uphill climb, for the listeners out there, if somebody's listening and they're at the base of that steep hill, what advice do you have for them? What's the first step that they can take to find sobriety as well?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is rely on your network of friends. If it wasn't for I have a large network back in Dallas. Just because I get out and I socialize. I mean, that's what I do for a living is network, right? So I had a variety of individuals that I could call upon. But I called on Karen and Jason Gray. Karen and I met years ago, and they're both just amazing human beings, and I was lucky and very, very blessed to have them in my life. But I'm fairly confident that most of us have a Karen or Jason in our lives, and that you can reach out to. And that's the first thing. Isolation is desolation. It's you can't isolate and get through this. Reach out, make a phone call, tell people what you're doing and where you're at and how you're suffering, and you'd be surprised at the amount of support you get back. But that's the first step. Leverage your network, make a phone call. Don't hide in shame. Get out there and do what needs to be done to get better.
And how do you find a rehab?
They're all over the place. Rehabs are, they're literally, especially here in San Diego, they're like every 3 blocks. I mean, San Diego is like the
And
recovery
Florida,
capital.
California and Florida, what's with it?
And I guess it's the weather. I don't know. But honestly, the place I went to back in Dallas, I didn't even find it. Karen did all the research and she found it, and then talked to Tracy, my wife, and together they did the insurance thing and they got it all lined out. But it's really as simple as hitting Google and just type in rehab facilities in your area or really anywhere across the country. I flew out here to San Diego, but I didn't pay for the flight. They flew me out here.
Wow.
I mean, there's and again, I have very good insurance still, and that's why Tracy and I are still married. Honestly, she hadn't finalized the divorce. The decree's drawn up. We both signed it, but she hasn't filed it because she's allowing me to stay on her insurance. So if it wasn't for Tracy and her continued support through this journey, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I don't know where I would be. I'd probably be dead in all honesty, and I'm not exaggerating. But if you have insurance, you'd be surprised at how the recovery industry is there to really support you and take you in. So it's been an amazing journey out here to San Diego. There was some bumps along the road, but overall it's been really, really good. And again, just jump on Google, find you a spot. There's other places you don't have to have insurance, and I want to stress that as well. You don't have to have insurance to go on your recovery journey. If you have insurance, then you've got some additional choices that are available to you, but you absolutely do not have to have insurance to go to a facility. There are facilities that are state and government funded, and they're available for you. They're a little more difficult, as far as living conditions go, that sort of thing. But the programs are the same. It's really just your environment. So take advantage of it and just jump on there, look for it, call a friend, have them find you one, whatever it may be. But they're very, very easy to find all across the country.
Well, Larry, I appreciate you sharing that because I would just assume it's so expensive and that would be just another barrier to get through to get to sober living. So I just am so appreciative of you coming on here and sharing your story on a podcast called Comfort to Courage. And
Yeah.
you're the epitome of courage for that person who's listening right now who is struggling, and the steps that you've had to go through to get to where you are. So I like to wrap up our conversation with a courage challenge. So every guest leaves our fearless followers with one specific action they can take this week. Larry, what's yours?
I would say to change your mindset. If you're struggling, try to change your mindset. And there's a variety of ways you can do that. You can do affirmations in the mirror. I mean, it sounds so silly. And I know everybody hears affirmations. And if you're from my generation, at least you start thinking of Stuart Smiley, I'm special and I am somebody, and darn it, people like me.
People like me.
But they work, man. And honestly, I picked up on affirmations from David Goggins. And I don't know if you know who David Goggins is, but he's an ex-Navy SEAL commander.
Yes.
And he runs 200 plus mile races. And I mean, he's one of the hardest cats on the planet. And he does daily affirmations. He writes them on Post-it notes and sticks them on his bathroom mirror. And when I read his book, I was like, oh my gosh, if it works for somebody like Goggins, who I thought was just naturally a tough guy, It's not natural. It's learned. So take that first step. And if affirmations is an easy first step, you can do it in the privacy of your own home or wherever you're at. Just do it and let yourself know you're not necessarily the product of your conditions.
Absolutely. And I have my affirmations on my lamp right here. I easily and effortlessly attract good fortune and wealth.
There you
I am
go. See?
I have the power to create change. All right. Anyway, so I
I know they sound cheesy, but they work.
I
You
do
know,
hate
they
saying them in the
work.
mirror though. That like kind of still freaks me out. But
Yeah,
anyway,
it's a little that's a next level type step. Start just by writing them. How about that? And then once you
perfect.
get comfortable there, maybe stick them on a post-it note and stick them where they're staring right back at you. At least you can see yours. So that's cool.
That's right. It's right there. Well, I'm going to move to the final part of the podcast here, which is where we find out what makes Larry Roberts a badass. And I use the acronym BADASS, and the first letter is B for book. What's one book that has changed the way you think or live?
Ooh, that would be Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink.
Ah, Jocko, that voice.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
could just say the phone book to me. My goodness. so,
But
Sorry,
but
say the book one more time. I
yeah, I
heard
was like,
Jocko. I got so
I'm,
excited.
I'm, I'm going to let you have your moment, but again, the book, the book is called Extreme Ownership, and it's really just taking ownership of your own life. He uses military examples and his experience as a Navy SEAL to demonstrate those leadership techniques. But it's Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. The first A in badass is for advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
You don't have to keep everything inside. You whether you believe it or not, you have a support system. You have people out there that are in your corner and they're fighting for you or with you. So uh, keep that in mind with whatever you're struggling with. Reach out, connect, and take advantage of not take advantage in that way, but leverage the support system that you have.
Excellent. All right. The D in badass is for doubt. What's a limiting belief you've had to overcome about yourself?
Oh, I fought this one my whole life. And that's the imposter syndrome or the I'm not enough. I'm not enough is so big with me because as a kid, I mean, I was born with a birth defect. I was very frail and fragile, stuck in private school to protect me because I had massive reconstructive surgery on my chest when I was 4 years old.
Oh,
And so, being in that environment, especially as I got older, I'm like, why am I stuck in private school? Why can't I just go to school like the normal kids, But I love my private school that I graduated from. I'm still friends with the vast majority of the people I went to school with. So it was an amazing experience, but at the same time, it left me feeling a little less than. And that's something that I continue to fight with my entire life. And again, I'm nearly 54. So that's my limiting belief. I'm not enough.
wow. I'm 53, by the way. So I didn't realize we
Okay.
were this.
Well, I'm
I'm
technically still 53. So
I, I was born as I just turned 53. So anyway, you keep saying old man. I'm like, oh, he's
yeah, but I mean, you still look gorgeous. You got the nice bright red hair, and you have a great
well,
complexion. You don't look
it's
53
the
by any
lights.
stretch. Is that what it
It's all
is?
these different
Is
lights
that what
around
it
me.
is? Yeah. So that's why I dyed my beard back in the day. Is because I was like, man, you look old as can be. But they don't let you dye your beard in
Well,
rehab, so I'm kind of stuck.
this is not natural. Let's just face it. All right. The second A in badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So, what is something you're working towards that really excites you? And let it be AI. Tell me about AI.
Well, it is AI in all honesty.
Good,
I
good.
mean, but first I have to get through this sobriety journey, and
Yes.
I have to get my shit together in that arena. But yes, it is AI. This project that I'm working on right now that I've mentioned twice already, I'm so super stoked about it because I'm very, very confident that if or slash when we pull this off, it will change the way a lot of our small to mid-size boutique type podcast production agencies do their business. There's definitely a gap in the industry where this it would come into play. So there's an opportunity. We've got a plan, and we're already putting that plan into action, and we're in build mode right now. So that's my big aspiration is to drop that, and I may be pushing it a little bit with January. I mean, that's only about a 5 month development time for something of this scale. But at least we could probably possibly have a proof of concept that we could demonstrate at that time. So that's my big goal right now.
Is it going to do editing?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
The plan is to remove anywhere between 70 to 90% of the manual podcast production that we
Production
currently
side.
see. Yeah. Yeah. So the goal is to dynamically record an episode once the episode's recorded. I don't want to give too much away because somebody else will get the idea, but
Okay.
let's just say that you record, it'll do ideally, again, 90% of what you need to do to publish and produce a podcast episode and distribute it, while keeping minimal human involvement. And really, the only human involvement we really want is like the QA side of things, because a lot of mistakes that people make is they rely solely on AI, and they don't do their due diligence and review the content that AI generates for them. They just copy and paste it. And I mean, that was a problem back in 24 when we were first using ChatGPT. And it's still a problem today, especially with all these other platforms. Claude has really come a long ways, and it really seems to be one of the most preferred platforms out there. It's kind of like they've left ChatGPT in the dust as far as the popularity contest goes. So that's been interesting to watch. But again, we want to remove as much as possible from the entire process. And I'm talking social media, I'm talking publishing, I'm talking analytics, I'm talking everything. And we really want it to be you record and go on about your business.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. That is just music to my ears. And I use Claude to create the structure of things, but I still go back to ChatGPT because I feel like it knows my vibe better with a lot of the
100%.
script writing and things like that. So I could totally geek out over AI, but we are going to continue here. The first S in badass is for strength. Who or what do you lean on when life gets hard?
Yeah, probably the biggest person in my life that I lean on is his name's Rick Arnold. And he was my martial arts instructor back in the day. And I mean, he really made me a man, in all honesty. When I met Rick, I was already a black belt in a different style of martial arts, but he took me to a whole other level and instilled a confidence in me and an awareness in me that no one in my life has ever influenced me the way that Rick Arnold has. And he's still one of my best friends today. I talk to him while I'm out here in San Diego. And, I haven't been in the fight game since the early 2000s. So while I've been kind of removed from the martial arts industry, I'm on the outer fringe, and Rick and I have remained friends all these years. I've probably known him 35 years of my
Wow.
life, maybe even a little bit longer. I knew him before he knew me, let me put it that way, because I used to, if I could just train under Rick Arnold, it'd be so cool. And then I ended up becoming one of his best friends. So, you never know where life's going to take you. But yeah, that's who I would lean on for my strength is Rick, because he's a no nonsense, hard school, old school Texas black belt karate guy, and he just kind of speaks my language. So
I love it. Well, the final S in badass is success. At this stage of your life, Larry, what does success look like to you?
Success is going to look like a return to form. Success is going to look like reestablishing Red Hat Media. Success is going to look like rebuilding what I have gone through all these years to tear down. That's what success looks like to me. And honestly, at this stage of the game, the first aspect, and I want to reiterate that again, is getting sober. And ironically enough, it also starts with an S. So that's going to be the first step in success. And then from that point forward, yeah, I need to rebuild and get back where I was.
Well, Larry, I am just so appreciative that you came on here to be my first guest in my rebranded podcast, and your story just fits it perfectly. And I appreciate you sharing your story. And how do the listeners find you if they want to get on this AI train that you're going to be doing in January, or how do the guests find you?
Yeah, I mean, it's real simple. My
The
name's
listeners, excuse me.
the guests. I'll find you. I'll find me too. I don't know. But everything's Larry Roberts. My website's larryroberts.com. All my business information, all the Red Hat Media information is there. Access to my books and everything's there. Also, as you mentioned earlier, all of my social media is the Larry Roberts. So hit me up on Instagram, Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm pretty much everywhere. I'm not on X though. I'm not.
Who
Don't
does
tweet
X?
me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
who
I'm
does
not.
that?
I'm not on X. But other than that, I'm basically everywhere under the same handle. The Larry Roberts. One more time.
And you are so inspiring, and it is great to watch you on social media. So, Larry, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And that is all. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode. And if you take just one thing away from this podcast, remember this: you are one courageous decision away from uncovering the badass you've always been. Courage is contagious, so pass it on.
Thanks for listening to Comfort to Courage with the real Jen Josie. If today's conversation challenged you, inspired you, or gave you the courage to take that next bold step, subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who's ready to trade comfort for courage. Until next time, keep choosing courage, keep chasing growth, keep pushing past your limits, because courage is contagious. Now, go be the badass you were meant to be.